the story is pretty much told in the trailer. And secondly, it isn't anything that we haven't seen before as far as storytelling. So, bottom line here, I mean, the only thing that can really wow me in the movie is the performances and how the story is, you know, kind of told.
Right.
I mean, that's like pretty much the X factor for me as far as what can make this film great.
It's not that James Cameron is a genius. It's that James Cameron did a very simple thing in many of his films. He realized that, listen, I know I'm an action guy. I'm an action director and I do that well. But for action to actually mean anything and be sustainable, you actually have to have a story with characters and decent direction. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's what he did in Terminator 1. That's what he did in T2. That's what he did in True Lies. That's what he did in Alien. That's what he did in Titanic to even a degree.
This film is like, you know, it's not a sequel. It's not a rip-off of anything. It's not, you know, based on the best-selling book, based on the, you know, hit TV show. You know, even Dark Knight, you know, is based off, you know, is just another
Batman
series.
I saw the second trailer. I was still, you know, on Cameron's side, but after the second trailer, it kind of pulled me down a bit because the story, again, you guys already touched on it, but the story seems too much. It seems too much like Pocahontas, Dancing with Wolves type thing. Basically, the science fiction version of Pocahontas. Unless there's more, the only thing I'm hoping and banking on is that you know, this is Cameron, so hopefully there's something more to the story that we haven't seen.
When I saw the second one, like I said in the Talkback show, this is District 9 story. It is all those other movies that I named. It's the same story. Like, I know how this movie ends. It told us how it ends. It told us what's going to happen. However, when you think back, how original was his Alien story? The Alien story, James Cameron's stories are not that. I mean, the deepest story he's really had was probably T2. And even then, like, when you look at the stories are just very, very well told, and they're decent, they're good. That's the strength of what he does. Like, he'll give you a story that, you know what, it's not that hard to understand this. Like, can anybody go into a James Cameron story and come out, I'm confused, I have no idea what just happened? No. The reason being, the stories are straightforward, and second of all, he tells them very well. You don't miss anything, there's no confusion, and that's what I mean by, you know what, with action movies, the kind of people who like action movies particularly, or even people who are not only action fans, when they go into the cinema to do action, they don't necessarily want to sit there and listen to a lot of dialogue, I'll have their mind twisted by some Memento-ish type storyline. Not necessarily. They just want like a story that's relatively straightforward, but is well told and is interesting or unique to a degree.
It just felt very just slapdash together, and it didn't feel complete. Like, it didn't feel epic like it's supposed to make you feel when you watch the trailer.
Right. That's interesting. I think, you know, with things like this, it might be a case of, I don't know, because the reason why I say this is that I felt differently when I watched it. It was like an inverse for me, because I saw the first one and I felt that way. I was like, this just, I mean, I'm not really excited to see this. But the second one, like, I felt, in a way, it's like I felt it was complete, because I from the second trailer that we just got, I was able to tell exactly what the story was, who the main characters were, what the main characters' roles were, which is something that most trailers can't do. If Sam Worthington's character, they focus on that journey to the same intensity, that we feel that, okay, this guy, he had no legs, that he finally, and this all from the trailer, you can see it already. Had no legs, his life is in the dumps. His brother's still in the Marines, something happens to him, then he takes over from his brother. Boom. This is like a new start for the guy. Cuts his hair short, he now looks like a Marine, even though he really wasn't. His army career was effectively over because of his paralysis. He now goes into this world and it gives him new life, and then he realizes that he has more in common with these aliens than he does with the humans, and he now starts fighting for them. Now, if you can follow that story through hardcore, you've got all the action stuff coming in it, but we can actually identify with the character, then it works. That's how I think this movie works. If James Cameron, which might happen, he focuses more on the set pieces, on the special effects, on the CGI battles, on all the cool 3D things, then the movie's going to make money, but it's not going to be as explosive or effective. Because, listen, audiences respond to good stuff. They respond to good stories and good movies. No matter what people think has happened to audiences, if you give them good material, sooner or later, if you present it and market it the right way, they'll respond.
I think maybe knowing too much about the story might have, for me, in that particular instance, kind of threw me off, because not knowing that much, but just giving me just enough, or just a hint of what the story could be, like in the Star Trek trailer and like in the first trailer.
Right.
That kept my interest, because I don't know what's happening, but I know a little bit to be like, okay, I know where I'm going to be starting at.
Right.
This one, it's not so much that the story is presented; it's the fact that, okay, I know exactly where this is.
You know everything, right?
And it's been, again, Pocahontas.
Isn't that kind of like a pattern, though? You know, I don't mind the stories being, kind of recycled over and over. I mean, as long as it's, done in a unique way that actually gets me to care. I think that's the only way that this movie can be explosive.
It's almost a situation that even if we have any reservations about Avatar, we just have to support the movie. Like, even if we have any reservations about it, like, it's one of those things that, you know what, just to promote the idea of innovation, just to promote the idea of people pushing boundaries, this movie has to do well. Dark Knight, for example, I didn't think it was perfect. There are issues that I have with it. I'm like, how can anybody criticize that movie? You can't criticize Dark Knight. It did too much good for comics, for fandom, for hero movies, for comics, all of that stuff. It did too much good for anybody to criticize it, because of Dark Knight, people realize that, wow, if we actually produce something actually above average, that's actually good, we'll actually make 3 times as much money as we thought we could.